Hello and welcome to the EDHRECast. I am Dana and I'm here today with my partner in crime, a man out of time, and a man who knows how to drop a sick rhyme, Matt Morgan. How are you doing today?
I have zero sick rhymes for you today. I've been pretty annoyed lately. I hired a handyman, gave him a to-do list of 6 different things I needed him to do. He only did items 1, 3, and 5, so it turns out he only does odd jobs around the house, which leaves me with a lot of stuff to do still. So no rhymes today. Sorry, Dana.
I saw that one coming and still laughed. That was still pretty good.
Well, hopefully you don't do anything to get even with me, because that means I'm really up a creek.
The follow-up is always the best, too.
It's always the best. You got to keep people on their toes.
Absolutely. So what are we talking about here today, Matt?
Well, this week we've been talking a lot lately behind the scenes about, man, everybody's playing all these popular commanders, and lately we did have one of the most popular commanders of all time get knocked off its perch. We talked a lot about how the Dragon has taken over the #1 spot, and that's what people are playing. But we've been talking a lot about more commanders that actually have a lot of really fun build paths people should be playing lately.
Yeah, it's really easy to look at the list of the most popular commanders and be like, oh, that's good. I'm gonna build that.
Yeah.
There's a lot of really good stuff out there, though, that isn't showing up on any of these top lists because people just missed it the first time around. They forgot about it. It got good cards after the commander came out, so people don't realize it's retroactively gotten good. And we want to talk about a few of those commanders. For example, Matt, what's one that you think people should be playing more of? What's one you can start us off here with?
I mean, there's a lot of stuff that's retroactively gotten really powerful. And I think my first commander that I want to talk about is one that it's been out for a little bit. It came out in Duskmourn, and it's Rip Spawn Hunter, which it's a Selesnya commander, and it has a survival mechanic, which is all about getting your creatures to go into the second main phase tapped, whether that's they're attacking or there's all sorts of different ways you can get those creatures to be tapped to trigger the survival ability. Well, Rip Spawn Hunter is going to be really good with all these station cards that Edge of Eternities is going to be bringing out here in the future. Just because station cards, it's a new mechanic where all these cards that have station, you can tap your creatures to put charge counters onto these different things. Like the Eternity Elevator is a big one people are excited about, where it's 5 mana for a legendary artifact spacecraft. You can tap it for 3 mana and has station, where once you have 20 of these charge counters on these spacecraft or any of these stations, they get an upgraded ability or get an updated version of what they do. So Rip Spawn Hunter, just being able to come down and tap immediately for all of these station cards. I think this is going to be such a cool commander that you're going to want to put a lot of just cards with survival in general into those decks.
So this is a good example of a way I like to find secretly good cards, where if you're just reading this, you look at it and think, okay, I want to take advantage of the ability where if Rip's tapped, I reveal X cards from my library and put either a creature or a vehicle into my hand. You just think, I'm going to tap it by attacking or something, and I'm going to get this effect from it. You're not thinking in terms of, well, what can I use Rip for to tap the creature, and that ability is a secondary effect. I want to tap Rip to do a thing.
Yeah. That's
going to be the strength I'm going to look for versus what's written on the card. You're kind of looking at the negative space around the ability. I love things that work that way. This is a good example of one of those things.
Yeah, and I think Rip is only secretly good right now. Like I said,
sure.
This to me is one of the commanders that has the most room to grow now that Edge of Eternity's previews are coming out, because you have all these station cards, you have all these ways that, yes, they don't have the right keyword, they don't have survival on them, so when you're doing Scryfall searches, EDHREC searches, you're not going to find all these secret synergies that line up. So you have to kind of keep your eye out, and Rip to me is just kind of the ultimate version of, okay, this thing got a lot of new support, new ways to trigger that survival ability. So what are we going to do with that now? And there's a lot of cards like that. I think Kona, Rescue Bestie, is going to benefit greatly from that, because that's just another huge ability. So the deck already had a decent shell together, but now that you have a lot of better ways to get these creatures tapped and to get those things triggering, you're going to be able to accrue so much value from all these different synergies you have going on.
So if you're building this deck, I'm assuming you want to lean into more spacecraft kind of stuff to take advantage of that station ability. Is that what I'm hearing in terms of your vision of how you would put this deck together?
I think so, yeah. Like I said, the shell for the deck is already there. There's a lot of vehicles in there, and Rip Spawn Hunter's ability to, the survival ability of being able to look at the top X cards of your library, X's Rip's power, grabbing any number of creature and or vehicle cards with different power powers, putting them in your hand, that's already a very, very good card advantage engine. So like, you have a shell there, you have stuff like all the vehicles, you have Cryptolith Right with, ways to get them tapped, adding mana. But I think this is just another way to get a really, really good source of extra value from those free tap abilities, because you don't always want to be throwing these survival creatures into combat because you never know what's going to happen in that combat. So it's so much easier to get these things tapped by other means. And I think crewing things is really good. And now just you have another source of that really easy value engine with all these station costs.
And if you're doing things like that, there are other cards that like will take advantage just accidentally of what you're doing.
Yeah.
So Well Rested is an aura that was in the Fallout series. Whenever a creature becomes untapped, you put 2+1 counters on it and you gain 2 life and draw a card. Mm-hmm. So this is the kind of thing like you put it on Rip, who's always going to be tapped because you're using it to crew. And it's not going to be the kind of thing where you have to be able to punch through, like swing at somebody and risk the creature dying. You're tapping it to crew a vehicle or tapping it to put counters on a station. And as a result, then when you untap it next turn, well, you put 2 more +1 counters on it. So it gets even stronger for the station ability, and you're drawing a card in the process. So you get weird things that like are going to just accidentally work with the things you're doing in this deck, which is always fun in a brew where you just find those like hidden synergies as well.
When you get some like really old mechanics too, like what was it, Inspired? The mechanic from Theros block where the Inspired ability was whenever this creature becomes untapped, you get to do something. So it does stink because like you have to wait a turn effectively to get that bonus. But there are all these benefits. You have Wily Duke, a teen hero that was from the Outlaws of Thunder Junction. I think this is another similar commander to what Rip is doing. Or you just put Wily Duke into a Rip deck and you just have another source of value because whenever Wily Duke becomes tapped, you gain 1 life and draw a card. And obviously, like in that set, you wanted to be doing stuff with mounts, you want to be doing stuff with vehicles. But with Station, you have just another way to add these cards into the 99. I would argue that long term, tapping a creature for the station cost, depending on what the station is, because we haven't seen all of them yet, we're still in the middle of preview season.
Right.
I think those are going to have better long-term value than crewing a majority of vehicles or mount in a typical commander game.
Yeah, the stations all look really, really good. Like there's a lot of power there, I think.
Yeah.
So having a commander that's going to work nicely with them, even if it wasn't intended to do so, is going to be like for a fun brew.
Yeah, well, and Rip having 4 power, because you get to, whenever you tap a creature to station, you station for the power. So putting 4 charge counters with Rip, that's nothing to shake your head at. And then also you still get to look at the top 4 cards of your library with Rip's ability. I think there's a lot of potential here that, like I said, this, at least right now, Rip is kind of secretly good, but long term, I don't think Rip's going to stay a secret for very long because you have a lot of new toys coming out with Edge of Eternities.
Well, we're going to talk about a few more of these commanders, but first, I want to talk about how we are really excited to be teamed up with Dragon Shield, our favorite producer of Magic sleeves and deck products.
Yeah, we are.
We had a great time at MagicCon Vegas playing games against people at the Dragon Shield booth, and we got to give away some of their sleeves at our live show. And we'll be repeating both of these things at MagicCon Atlanta this fall as well. And they've updated their MTG Card Manager app, which you can find for both iOS and Android by searching for Dragon Shield. It makes it easy to check prices for trades and track your collection and instantly translate foreign language cards and find Oracle text and rulings. It's the perfect companion app for Magic, and it helps you manage your cardboard treasures like a dragon.
Yeah, and if you'd like to support the show too, beyond just liking this video, subscribing on YouTube, one way that you can do that is going to patreon.com/EDHRECast. Get yourself a little bit of a benefit in exchange for supporting us over on Patreon. We've been doing a lot of patron-only content over there at Patreon. Dana's been uploading deck techs, joining the Discord community, and talking about all the previews that are going on with all these Edge of Eternities cards that are coming out right now. Or, you want to see the Historic Challenge of Stats picks. It's a way of us saying thank you for supporting us over at patreon.com/EDHRECast. And one thing that we also do every single week is give a very special thank you to one lucky patron. So this week we are going to give Sophie Muse such a huge, huge thank you. I'm glad you didn't muse it over too much. You are our muse, and whatever else, the cat goes muse. I think that's what they say. I'm not a cat person, so I don't really know. But either way, Sophie, thank you so much for all of your support.
And this show will be going out on Friday, July 18th. So if you are in the Minneapolis area, I will be at the NRG Series Showdown weekend in St. Paul on July 19th and 20th playing Commander. So if you're at the event, find me for a game.
That'll be a good time. It's always fun getting to play with you. I'm glad we got to get together in Vegas, Dana, because I mean, we're all pretty remote. And so getting to play in person, it's always a good time. Just getting to see what concoctions you especially have brewed up. So anytime we get to play in person, it's always fun. So yeah, if you're in Minneapolis, make sure you head out there and get some games in.
And as I mentioned earlier, we'll be at Atlanta, MagicCon Atlanta this fall as well. So if you're looking to find all three of us, we're going to be there. Hope to see you there as well.
Absolutely. Well, let's get back into it. So Dana, I got to talk about a commander that I think secretly is really good and people should be playing quite a bit more. Like, not just, hey, you should do that, but like, no, actually, you should be playing this. This is a very good synergy. What do you have up for us next?
So I've got Quende Pride of Femerith is a commander I think people should be playing more. Mono white, it's 4 mana for a human knight. It has double strike. It's a 2/2 and it says creatures you control with first strike have double strike. There's currently 490 decks in EDHREC for Quende. Final Fantasy's been out 3 weeks, and there's 41 commanders from Final Fantasy that have more decks than Quende.
No, I like Quende a lot because first strike is it's a keyword that's surprisingly easy to put on a bunch of creatures all at once too. It's also not like white struggles with anthem effects and ways to buff up all of your creatures at the same time. So there's a lot to like, and I'm kind of surprised. I think people saw maybe that Quende Pride of Femerith was only an uncommon. We're like, that's fine. We can kind of write it off.
I'm going to guess that's the case as well. And also the build path is obvious. Okay, I'm going to put a bunch of first strike creatures in here, and that's kind of what it is. But if you really think about it, like the first question I always ask myself when I build a new deck is like, how am I going to win? Mm-hmm. And sometimes it's easy to answer, and sometimes it's not. But
double strike is a really good way to win.
Right. This case is really, really easy. My commander is going to give my creature double strike, and like that's going to kill people in a lot of situations.
Mm-hmm. Well, especially with, you have cards like Baneslayer Angel too. So like it already has first strike, it has some other evasion, but also lifelink. So it's not just like this powerhouse card that took over standard for forever, but holy cow, like it has first strike, Quende gives it double strike, plus lifelink, plus it's hard to block.
Right.
This makes combat damage really hard. And I mean, math is for blockers, and this gives a really hard math problem to those people that want to be blocking.
Yeah, right. It changes what your opponents have to consider when things come in. Mm-hmm. And if you're playing any combat tricks, then that really changes the math in terms of what they have to worry about.
Yeah.
It's really, really useful. It's a commander that, like I said, it's a win condition in the zone, but it's also not the kind of win condition that needs to be in play immediately. You can take your time. Like, obviously, it's useful to have out, but if you have a board state and you're not quite ready to swing yet, but it's keeping people from swinging at you, you can hold back on your commander till the optimal moment and put it down and play, and it's not really going to change, aside from like chip damage, what you're doing. You can wait for the alpha strike to play it and keep it safe and not have to worry. Mm-hmm. Other thing I really like about this commander, you usually want to have ways to protect your commander or protect your creature to keep them from being removed.
Yep.
Ways to give stuff hexproof. Well, one of the things in this deck you're going to want to do is be able to guarantee you punch through for damage. And a way you can do that is to give your creatures protection from colors your opponent has out in play. So like Brave the Elements, for example, choose a color and white creatures you control gain protection from that color till end of turn.
Yep.
It's a single white mana to cast that. Well, okay, you can use it as a way to keep someone from removing that double striking Baneslayer Angel if they go to Swords to Plowshares, that you just give a pro white. But if you need to use it to give your creatures protection from whatever the blockers are so they can't be blocked, that's an option too. And there's a handful of ways in white to protect your creatures or give them protection from blockers, basically. And you can, it's nice having spells that do double duty. In this case, you have the ability to do that. You can either protect your creatures or make them unblockable, more or less, on the same card. And that is really, really nice in a deck.
Yeah, having a 1 mana, your creatures are unblockable when they also have double strike. That just is, that wins games.
Right.
That just ends games right then and there. It's so easy. Yeah, Brave the Elements is such a powerhouse card. There's all sorts of other cards in this vein. Chroma's Blessing, I know, is one that it's an old card, so of course you love it, Dana. But yeah, absolutely. And also having the flexibility of just being able to cycle that away. There's a lot of just cheap, like 5-10 cent cards that all your creatures get protection from this, and you just alpha strike them. White has no shortage of being very defensive and protective, but having cards like Brave the Elements that also can pivot to being an offensive card, that's just going to win you games. Yep. That's just how it's done.
Yeah, and you mentioned, the different anthems and stuff you can run. Dictative Heliod, flashing in to give your creatures +2/+2. Well, that's 4 extra damage per creature when you factor in Double Strike. It doesn't take many creatures to turn that into a kill in a situation where someone isn't ready for it. Mm-hmm. And the other thing that's nice, because you're in mono white, you get to do things like run pseudo one-sided board wipes, like Mass Calcify that only destroys non-white creatures, or Ravnica War that destroys multicolor stuff. It's going to miss some things. Someone's going to have white stuff out or whatever, or someone's going to have monocolor creatures, but
yeah, that's always a risk, but really
you're going to lose nothing, and people will lose some things.
Yeah, I think that's almost always worth it.
And that's always useful.
Always worth it. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. And then you can stack up combat damage triggers as well because of Double Strike. So if you want to put swords on stuff, well, those are going to proc twice every time they hit somebody.
And those are really good ways to protect stuff.
Yeah. A card I like on the deck is Noble Purpose. It's an enchantment that gains you life when you deal damage. You're dealing damage twice, so it's double triggers. But because the way it's worded, it stacks with lifelink. So if you have creatures with lifelink like Baneslayer, you gain life from lifelink and you gain life from Noble Purpose on each of those hits.
A lot of value there. I see why you especially would be attached to this, because there's so many layers to what you can be doing on that too. So man, I feel like Quende, just they people saw it was an uncommon and kind of wrote it off, when really it's not that hard to give your entire team first strike. And you use Quende as an overrun effect, basically. You only play it when you go in for that alpha strike.
Yes.
Because that's all you really need it for.
Yep. And Matt, you mentioned before, talking about Patreon, how we've been doing deck techs on Patreon. So I actually did a deck tech on a budget version of this Quende deck last week for patrons. I'm just going to open that up so anyone can view it. So we'll put the link down below in the show notes. And if you want to get an idea of some of the content we do for Patreon subscribers, anyone who isn't a currently subscriber can watch this video and see the kind of stuff you get access to if you are a sub.
Yeah, you're definitely going to want to check that out. I mean, Dana, you always do some really, really cool decks, especially when you're operating on a budget. So yeah, definitely check that video out if everybody's interested in that and wants to get a glimpse of what we do over at Patreon. So my second commander, actually, Dana, is going to be similarly kind of functioning in the same vein, Dana, that you talked about Quende, how you play it on the turn you want to win. It's an overrun type of effect. This one kind of does a similar type of thing, and it's Sita Varma Masked Eraser. That's from Aether Drift that just came out. There's only 298 decks to Sita Varma so far. I understand why, because exhaustibilities, I wasn't super keen. I don't think the community was super excited, but this one also kind of does a similar thing where you get to set up your board and then you use Sita Varma as kind of an overrun effect with that exhaustibility, and that reads, it's X green, blue, put X +1/+1 counters on Sita Varma, then you may have the base power and toughness of each other creature you control become equal to Sita Varma's power until end of turn. So I think this actually is secretly very good, just because overrun effects, I mean, they're super common and we talk about them all the time. Like, you have to be able to win. Overrun effects are a way to just reward yourself for having an established board state. Putting one in the command zone means you have a repeatable one and a flexible one that you can find anytime you need it. I think that is such a valuable thing in a lot of decks.
Yeah, especially just like Sig said, on demand, being able to what is kind of functionally overrun in the command zone. And it's really efficiently costed. 2 mana to get that out and play. You're in colors. The other thing too, like you mentioned, people not maybe loving the exhaustibility because you want to use it one time. Well, you want to use it one time per cast of the commander. It's really, really cheap. If it dies, you cast it for 4 or for 6, you're still feeling okay about that. But you're in blue, you can blink that too if that's the route you want to go. And every time you blink it, it's a new instance of the card, and you can reuse that exhaustibility again. Like, there's a lot of ways to work around that, particularly in these colors.
Yeah, but also too, you only need to use it once if you're using it right. Anyway, so when you think about this deck, there's 2 commanders that immediately give me inspiration for what I would want to do with this. One is Azuri Claw of Progress, where you're just flooding the board with a bunch of small creatures. And Edric Spymaster Chest, same thing. You're playing small evasive creatures. You're just flooding the board and you're just dumping your hand. And then all of a sudden, you're going to play your Sita Varma, and maybe the next turn you even just do, X equals 3 on the exhaustibility, put 3 +1/+1 counters. Well, all of those flying men and all of those glistener agents and all those 1/1s suddenly become 5/5, and when you have 7 or 8 of them on the battlefield, Well, yeah. Seed of Arma gets very powerful super quick, and that's not even taking into effect. You can play a bunch of creatures with +1/+1 counter synergies. You can do all sorts of different things with this. I really think that this is a good substitution. So, Dana, you have an Edric Spymaster Trust deck, right?
Yeah.
But you also know that deck has a reputation attached with it, especially for people who've been playing for a long time. Seed of Arma only has 300 decks, not even 300 decks. So you can dodge that reputation and having that, and granted, you lose the card advantage in the command zone. That is huge for that deck. But still, having the overrun effect instead, I think there is some amount of trade-off because you're dodging all that early attention.
Well, and with Edric, you need to have Edric in play to get the card draw that gets you to the point in the game where you're like hitting extra turn spells or hitting all the overruns. And it works. You're in blue, you have protection, but like you still have to get Edric out, hopefully have protection because people will want to remove it right away, and then start accumulating card advantage to get to that point.
Yeah.
This kind of works the opposite way. You can do your thing, like we talked about with Quende. You can do what you're wanting to do, and you don't have to play this until you want to use it. And that there's a lot of advantage to a commander that's really integral to part of your win condition, but it's one that you don't need to play until you get there. That is really nice.
Yeah, and I know too, part of the overrun effect on Seed of Arma is that it does not give trample itself. It doesn't give itself any sort of evasion. But like I said, if you're playing that really low to the ground, 1 and 2 drops that already have evasion, like Slither Blade and all those types of cards, you don't need any evasion on that overrun. You can just play it for the pump effect. And green also just has access to a ton of ways to give your team trample anyways. Yeah. So I'm not super worried about it. I'm actually, the more that I've been digging into this commander specifically, the more I'm kind of surprised more people aren't playing it because, again, if you want something that dodges all of the hate that Edric Spymaster of Trest has, but you still want that overrun effect, this seems like a really good option that people just are very much sleeping on and should be playing more.
Well, and unlike Quende, where like that deck's going to probably look very similar to the next Quende deck just because you're building with creatures with first strike, you don't necessarily have to do that here too. Like you mentioned, +1 counter synergies, you can go that route. You can go with like the Edric really small evasive creature route. You know, it's a rogue which tend to have evasion. Like if you wanted to go with some kind of a Simic, rogue kindred build, that would probably be pretty viable here as well. There's a lot of really good evasive blue rogues. Like this is a situation where you could very easily build 3 very different decks that are all very effective with the same commander.
Yeah, you can build it in so many different ways, and you can even do the +1/+1 counter strategy too, because we haven't even talked about that yet.
Right. Yeah,
and Simic does that very, very well.
Absolutely.
You can look to decks like Peer and Toothy for some, base inspiration, where you get that ball rolling on your commander, Seed of Arma, and then all of a sudden, well, I have a 9/9 commander. I can just activate this and give all my other creatures plus however much that you want to activate Seed of Arma for. Like this, to me, seems like the commander that people just, I don't know. Aether Drift was a miss for a majority of people. I know there's some people that did like it, but I think the reputation for Aether Drift really hit Seed of Arma because it is a really cool commander. And if you want just that overrun effect in the command zone, this does a lot of really cool things.
I mean, sets that kind of missed with people are almost always the best places to find cards that got overlooked.
Yeah, and this seems like
example of that.
The best example for that. So,
yeah.
Well, real quick, before we get into any more commanders we want to talk about, let's get a quick break for Challenge of Stats. We'll come back to it and we'll knock everything out because Challenge of Stats, I mean, there's a reason people love this segment. There's a lot of data out there on EDHREC, and Dana, you and I and Joey, we don't always agree with all of that data out there. So we're going to take a quick break for Challenge of Stats and we'll get back into it after that.
Challenge of Stats is brought to you by Cardsphere, our favorite way to get the cards we need to build the decks we're brewing. Go to cardsphere.com/EDHRECast today to get started. So my challenge today is in Karlach Fury of Avernus decks. Karlach is a 5-mana Tiefling Barbarian, a 5/4, and whenever you attack, if it's the first combat phase of the turn, untap all attacking creatures. They gain first strike until the end of turn, and after this phase, there's an additional combat phase. Now, Karlach is pretty frequently paired up with a background. That's one of her abilities. You see a lot of Cultist of the Absolute and Agent of the Shadow Thieves pairings, which give you access to black. And a card that should see more play in those decks, in Karlach decks that have access to black, is Death Pits of Wrath. Death Pits is an enchantment, 5 mana, 3 double black. Whenever a creature is dealt damage, destroy it and it can't be regenerated. Why this is really good in Karlach is because when Karlach is attacking, she gives all of your creatures first strike. That means they will deal the damage before your creature's opponents will deal damage, and any amount of damage that is dealt, if someone blocks your creature with a 20/20 and one of your creatures is a 1/1, the 1/1 will kill it and survive for the second combat damage swing. It's kind of functionally giving your creatures death touch on an enchantment it's difficult to remove in the middle of a swing. It's just a good card in Karlach. It's in less than 1% of decks, and I think it should see more play if you are able to play something with black in those kind of decks.
Yeah, I like that, Dana. So I'm going to get into my challenge. So we actually got an email from Henry Evans, which you can do at edhrecast@gmail.com. Send us an email with a challenge or whatever insights you might have. And Henry had a challenge, not just for one specific deck, but an entire archetype of decks, and also an entire mechanic in that archetype. So there's a lot going on here. But Henry said, I have a challenge for you, and it's not just a commander, but an entire archetype. And if you look at the Blink tag on EDHREC, the most popular creatures are stuff like Spirited Companion, a 2-mana 1/1 that draws a card when it enters the battlefield, and it's in over 30,000 decks. But for 1 more mana, you could be running Combat Thresher using its prototype ability. So Blink decks are all about getting a creature that's on the battlefield to flicker it, it leaves, it gets exiled, whatever it is, and then comes back and you get that ETB ability again. So Combat Thresher is 7 mana for a 3/3 with double strike. When it enters the battlefield to draw a card, that immediately doesn't seem great, but it has the prototype ability, which is super important with this synergy Henry's talking about, where you can pay 2 and a white to have it come in as a 1/1. So what Henry's talking about is you can flicker Combat Thresher, for example, because you paid 2 and a white, comes in as a 1/1, you draw a card, has double strike. You flicker it and it comes back in. Well, it enters without the prototype stamp on it. So it's actually going to come in as the 3/3 that draws you a card and still has double strike, which Henry points out is a huge upgrade in how relevant that body is. And looking at all of the prototype cards in blue and white, for example, or just in any colors, there's a lot of really, really good cards that you would want to be playing because you can play them for cheap and then you flicker them. I really, really like this synergy. This is a way to get something in for cheap and then flicker it to have it come in bigger and better than ever. So I really like this. It's just a nice way to reevaluate all these old synergies, because I'll admit, I thought prototype was kind of okay. It wasn't the greatest, but in certain strategies, it does get a lot better. So thank you so much for your email, Henry, and also for the challenge.
Yeah, I like that a lot. That's really clever. It's useful, and it's useful repeatedly in different ways over the course of the game. Flickering prototypes is super cool. I like that a lot.
Yeah, like that.
Okay, so another commander here I think people should be playing, and they aren't at all right now currently, is Yahenni Undying Partisan. Yahenni Undying Partisan is 2 and a black for a legendary creature, Aetherborn Vampire. They're a 2/2, and they have haste. And whenever a creature an opponent controls dies, put a +1 counter on Yahenni. And you can sacrifice another creature, and Yahenni gains indestructible until the end of turn. The reason I think this commander is secretly pretty good, it's a commander that protects itself whenever you sacrifice a creature by giving itself indestructible, and it can be buffed really easily for kind of a Voltron effect while also wrecking your opponent's board state. And the reason I say that is because I think if your play group is okay with you going this route, if you stacked your deck with edict effects that like force your opponents to sacrifice a creature, edicts that you cast is going to put 3 counters on Yahenni. It's going to remove a potential blocker. So Yahenni then, the first edict you cast, it's up to a 5/5, then an 8/8. It gets big pretty quickly while they lose the ability to protect or to block the swing that's eventually coming in.
Yeah, that is a really, really fast way to, you get the blockers out of the way, but you're just making Yahenni progressively bigger and bigger. Yahenni is one of those cards too. Yahenni's in a ton of decks, in the 99, I guess I should say. It's in so many, but it's very rarely at the helm of decks. And that's one of those cards. I feel like we could have a whole episode about cards too, that you see them in the 99 all the time, but you never see them in the command zone. Because Yahenni just does a lot of work, and you can play all of your Fleshbag Marauder effects where it comes in, you hit 3 cards. So you're basically getting 4 counters on Yahenni every single time you cast one of those. That adds up super fast.
Well, and if you want to be unpleasant about it too, you can stack up like Grave Pact and Dictate of Erebos kind of effects.
Ooh.
So like when you have to sacrifice your Fleshbag Marauder, then everyone else sacrifices more things, more sacrifices, more counters on Yahenni. There's a lot of ways to get this out of control in a hurry. Blade of the Bloodchief is an equipment that whenever a creature an opponent controls dies, you put 2+1 counters on the equipped creature. If it's a vampire, well, Yahenni's a vampire. So every time an edict goes off and 3 creatures are sacrificed, that's 9 counters every single time going on Yahenni. Like there's a lot of ways to make this add up very quickly into a 1 or 2 shot creature that's indestructible at will as long as you have sacrifice fodder in your deck.
I feel like Yahenni has its own brand of math, like that deck. Mm-hmm. Like Yahenni math is different than regular math. It's kind of like heir apparent math. Like, okay, if I have 5 heir apparents on the battlefield, I know I have this many tokens. It's kind of like Yahenni, like, okay, I play this edict effect, I'm going to get so many counters on Yahenni, and it's just going to add up really. It snowballs super quick, too. It's going to be really hard to keep blockers on the battlefield. It's going to be really hard. Like, you have to answer Yahenni, and then you also have to get kind of specific with the answers that you're playing when it comes to Yahenni too, because you have to typically play exile-based removal.
Right.
Because you can just sacrifice something in response to a destroy effect. Yahenni gets indestructible.
Right.
It gets really out of hand really quickly. I don't understand why this isn't at the helm of more decks.
And if you want to, make it easier to get that lethal damage through as well, you're in black, so you have access to Tainted Strike or Glistening Oil or Phyresis to give Yahenni Infect. So you only need to deal 10 damage. That's much easier to get to then. There's equipment that like buff your creature based on the amount of swamps you control. Lash, Writhe, or Nightmare Lash do that. Mm-hmm. You have access to Howl from Beyond in black. It's really easy, in addition to all the counters, to get Yahenni to that point where you just are in one-shot territory.
Yeah, this gets very powerful very quickly. I don't think this is anything unheard of, because it's not like Yahenni isn't in a bunch of decks. Right. So I don't understand why people aren't playing more. And maybe it's just because people look down on aggro a little bit. They shouldn't. That's like the whole thing I do. But yeah, having something that just goes fast and hard, like, I really like Yahenni. I think people should be playing this more, because people shouldn't look down on aggro decks as much as they do. But either way. So I'm going to get us into my last pick that I want to talk about today. And this is one that I've seen this in person. If you're part of our Discord community over at Patreon, one of our moderators has a Quintorius Field Historian deck. And every time I see this deck, I'm just blown away why more people aren't building this. There's barely 700 decks on EDHREC for Quintorius Field Historian. So it's 3 in Boros, so a red and a white for a 2/4 Elephant Cleric. And it says, spirits you control get +1/+0. Automatically buffing up your spirits that you're making, because whenever 1 or more cards leave your graveyard, you create a 3/2 red and white spirit creature token. That's really easy to make 4/2s, kind of on demand, really. This is so silly how easy it is to have things going in and out of your graveyard with Quintorius decks. There's been a lot of cards that just like instantly have a bunch of grave hate built into them. There's all sorts of things going on with Quintorius decks. I think people, again, they saw it, it's just an uncommon, and it was in a fairly popular at the time set with Strixhaven, and there was a lot of big and flashy things going on, but then you kind of forgot that this is actually just super easy to trigger. Even back then, it wasn't too hard. But now you have more tools than ever. You have cards like Currency Converter, Bag of Holding, all these cards that are going to, get you a bunch of card advantage, but also make a lot of tokens, because you can just have these things proc over and over and over again.
Yeah, like every time a thing leaves your graveyard, you are making a 3/2 red and white spirit, which is buffed by your commander. So it's a 4/2 red and white spirit. That's really powerful. And like I said, you can do this on demand so easily. Like, you definitely aren't going to want to be batching, like taking a bunch of cards out simultaneously, but there's so many ways to do that on demand in these colors, to take one card out whenever you need to and make a spirit and make a spirit and make a spirit. And like, you can get a giant army very, very quickly from the cards that you're rummaging or looting into your graveyard with red's draw effects.
Yeah, it really does become a case of like, do a thing, make a spirit. do a thing, make a spirit. Like, that's how easy and repeatable it is. And we'll link the deck in the description of this video because it really is just an absolute banger. I love watching this deck go. It just does so many really, really cool things. But yeah, there's just some absolute all-stars. Like I said, like Bag of Holding is just such a powerful card. I think that there's a couple new cards that it got. There's stuff like Summoner's Sending, where you're able to exile cards out of your own graveyard. Again, proccing that, you're making spirits, which again, you're making a 1/1, but then Quintorius makes it a 2/1.
Yep.
Maybe people were turned off by it being 5 mana too, but I don't really know, because this just does so many really cool things. And again, it's another commander that has gotten better over time because of all the tools that we keep adding to trigger Quintorius's ability.
Well, and for some secret tech here, if you want to dig through your bulk and find that elephant graveyard from back in Arabian Nights. Quintorius is a elephant, and you can regenerate him. And I was kidding when I said bulk. That's a very expensive card, but like if you happen to have one, that's a pretty good use for it to put in your Quintorius deck.
I guess that's one way to do it. But also too, like we haven't even talked about like token doublers and token triplers and all those things that really can push Quintorius over the edge too. And one mechanic actually that I really like that I haven't seen a lot of people playing around with lately is Encore cards. There's some really cool stuff like Angel of Indemnity that's going to bring even more things back. There's a bunch of there's so many tools that Quintorius decks have gotten. Only 700 decks, and that is wrong. People should be playing this more because it's super powerful. It's very easy to get out of hand. And once you kind of get those wheels moving, it is so fun to watch.
Sure, yeah, things like Cathar's Crusade, where you're putting counters whenever a creature comes into play, and like the ability to at instant speed make these spirits with Crusade, and you're putting more counters on stuff when it comes into play, and like being able to do tricks like that at instant speed with this is really useful as well.
Yeah.
So
yeah, there's just a lot of fun things you can do with this. Definitely, people need to look at Quintorius again. This is too good of a commander to be sitting there at 700 decks.
Yeah, no, fully agree. It's fun. It feels it's doing a unique thing in white. It's powerful. It just should see more play for sure.
Yeah, 100%. All right, Dana, what about you? What's another commander that you need people to be playing more of?
So the last one I think people should be playing that I have here is only in 14 decks for this combination of commander with a background. So 14 decks for Levon, Cultist of Tiamat, along with Cultist of the Absolute for the background. So
which is Levon a Cultist of Tiamat or of the Absolute?
Apparently both in this conversation.
You can join multiple cults. This is what I learned today.
They're both pretty chill cults, and they'll let you do a little bit of cross-pollination, apparently.
Fair. All right, well, tell us about the commander then.
So Levon is a Dragon Shaman. It's a 1/3 for 2 and a red. Whenever you cast a non-creature spell, target creature gets +X/+O till end of turn, where X is that spell's mana value. And Cult of the Absolute is a single black mana. Commander creatures you own get +3/+3 and have flying, death touch, and ward, pay 3 life. And at the beginning of your upkeep, sacrifice a creature. So you have to have sacrifice fodder for this to keep it in play, but that's very, very easy to do in black and red, both of which have a lot of things that do that, beginning of your upkeep, make a token, whether it's Bitter Blossom, stuff of that nature. So it's very easy to feed this machine. And why I'm mentioning things that make tokens is because the way I would build this commander is you probably want to stack stuff that isn't creature based. So every spell you cast buffs up your commander or buffs up another creature. So a Bitter Blossom is going to make you a token that you can sacrifice every turn. And when you cast it, it's going to buff up a creature because of Levon's ability. And I think the way you would want to go here is with things like damage doubling enchantments and extra combats. And the reason is casting those causes a Levon trigger and then doubles up, whether it's a damage doubler or an extra combat. So, for example, if you cast a Gratuitous Violence, 5 mana, it's going to give Levon +5/+5.
Sure.
Cultist being in play gives a +3/+3. That means they hit for 18. Like just casting Gratuitous Violence with your 2 commanders out makes your commander hit for 18 damage. If you have Levon out and you cast Fiery Emancipation, that's it. If you just cast Fiery Emancipation, your commander's hitting for 33 that turn.
So Dana, your 3 picks there's a theme here. They're all super aggro decks that get
sure, yes.
They just go super fast. And I think this is kind of a commentary. I know we're getting away from Levon specifically, but man, I don't know why people just feel like you can't play aggro decks.
Yeah.
You should play aggro decks. Like if people like have the goal of winning, it's super easy to do that. And it's not even like Levon is a super fragile deck either, because you're spreading everything out so you can just keep that engine going.
Right. Yeah.
So it doesn't totally depend on just one creature.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. There's just like so many things you can do to, and if you want to go the Voltron route, which is kind of what I was talking about there, if you're just buffing Levon. But yeah, like you said, you can buff all of those tokens up by casting other things. And the damage doublers, same thing. If you're casting those, put it on one of the tokens, or if you're casting the extra combat. Any of the stuff you do is just going to buff things up with this commander out. I think it's, and if you're running like red redirect spells as protection, someone goes to remove your commander, you redirect it, which also buffs your commander. Like the things that you would do at instant speed to protect it. If you know there's enough red spells at instant speed that you can cast to give a double strike and buff it in the process.
Well, again, too, Dana, this has your favorite text on a Magic card where it says target creature, not target creature you control.
Right, absolutely, yeah.
And so you can use Levon politically. So say in that situation too, oh, I have to use a deflecting swat because you're trying to kill a creature that's attacking somebody for lethal. Well, I'm going to deflecting swat it, and I'm going to make it lethal maybe if it wasn't before. There's a lot of really cool things because you can target other people's creatures with these buffs. I see why you like this, because not only does it go fast, you can play around with it in really fun ways. I've always wanted both of these cards to find more homes in my own decks. I'm trying really hard to find a place where Cultists of the Absolute makes sense. I think it's in like a Squall Seed Mercenary deck that I've been tinkering with a little bit.
Sure.
Where I want to sacrifice creatures, I want to sacrifice things, and then Squall can bring them right back. So I think there's something there, but I'm not sure. But I really like this combo. This is really fun. I really just wish both of these just got more attention, because they're really good. They're really powerful.
I mean, we've said it before, like we were just such big fans of the background mechanic in general.
Yeah, we were.
I can't wait yes, for sure. I can't wait till they revisit it. I just like it so much. Just finding these, like years later, we're still like finding combinations with backgrounds that work well and are fun to play.
Yeah, I really do hope we get more backgrounds somewhere down the road. I know every time that they've revisited the partner mechanic and just the descendants of partner with its choose a background, partner with, friends forever, whatever iteration that takes, they've always done something a little bit different. But I really do hope that we get more backgrounds and choosing, creatures that can choose a background, because it's a really fun thing to tinker around with and play around. And you have limitations. It's not like just the two color partners where you can have anything and everything. You do have to make some serious decisions with backgrounds. And I'm with you. I really hope we get more.
Yeah. It's so fun. And at this point, it's been a few years. So I'm my fingers crossed that we'll have something in the not too distant future. We'll see. But like if you're looking for something out there that is not being heavily played and should be played, dig into some of the partner, or the background mechanic options, because there's a lot of those combinations that are pretty decent and just aren't seeing play because, again, it was, I think, a set that slipped under the radar a little bit for people. And they didn't dig too deeply because there's just so many different options. There's just a lot of super cool stuff there.
Does it count as being a homer or a shill if we're shilling for a set that like is 5 years old, 4 years old at this point? Because we're still talking about Baldur's Gate. Like that was probably one of the best sets up to that point for Commander. It still does so much work. And if you want to do some digging, like you said, Dana, I think this is a really, really good set to start with, where you can just tinker around with, okay, what's a background that's going to make this commander tick? Or what's a commander that's going to make this background tick? There's a lot of just customization that just stems from this mechanic. And so, Baldur's Gate, once again, EDHRECast, shilling for the set years and years later.
I should really go take a look and see if I can see how many sets have came out between now and then, because it's entirely possible the amount of sets between now and Baldur's Gate is the same as the amount of sets between Baldur's Gate and like Visions or something. Like
probably.
It wouldn't shock me if that was the case.
I mean, the amount of Legends definitely
has
been outdone. That's undeniable. But I don't know. But I like all of these options, Dan. There's a bunch of really cool things. Just if you want to find ways just to win games, and everybody always talks about I can't win games, I always struggle. Like, don't be afraid of playing aggro. I guess that's
Absolutely.
the lesson. Here's some ways that you can do that. And there's all these commanders, whether you want to kill everything using a Yeheni, or you want to overrun with a Seed of Varna, and play a commander that like nobody really paid attention to. There's just so many different ways you can really just get into it. And yeah, you really should be playing these because you definitely can win a lot of games with some of these commanders.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and I'd love to hear from all of you out there what so we, when we did the prep for this show, we said commanders with less than 1,000 decks was just the arbitrary number we picked.
Yeah.
I'd like to hear from y'all out there, like what commanders that aren't seeing a lot of play under, say, 1,000 decks, you guys think should see more play because they're genuinely quite good and people should be playing them. So let us know in the comments below, shoot us an email, whatever it is you want to do. Reach out, let us know what you think are commander combinations that should just see more love, because there's a lot of great stuff out there that just doesn't see play because it's gotten forgotten, because there's just so many commanders that get released constantly. So yeah, let us know what things you think we should be playing as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Dana, let's get out of here this week. It was good getting to talk about this with you. Hopefully people listen to us, because when they should be playing these commanders. So before we leave though, where can everybody find you on the internet?
You can find me online at Dana Roach. That's where I'm at on Blue Sky most of the time. I'm writing articles for EDHREC, and you can find all of us together at patreon.com/EDHRECast.
And you can find me on pretty much any social media platform. That's at Mathimus55. That's MATHIMUS55. And don't forget, you can send us an email, edhrecast@gmail.com. If you have any challenge stats, any insights, anything like that, send us an email. But until next week, everybody, thank you so much for joining. Thank you so much for listening. And we'll see you next week. But don't forget, until then, to EDHREC your deck before you wreck your deck.